3.
Good evening, members of the committee, applicants, agents, staff, and members of the public. I will now call the Committee of Adjustment for April 21st, 2022 to order. As this meeting is being held virtually, I will remind you that the meeting is being recorded and streamed live via the County of Brant YouTube account. Committee of Adjustment members should use their cameras throughout the meeting so that applicants, agents, and members of the public can identify the voting members, and we can confirm you are present throughout the meeting. Planning staff will be requested to join the meeting during presentations and will be available to answer questions. Applicants, agents, owners, and delegations are also participating virtually. All persons wishing to speak to the items on the agenda were required to register prior to the meeting. Any comments, questions, or concerns received in written format have been provided to the members of the committee and will form part of the meeting record. Applicants, agents, and members of the public, please ensure your camera is off and your microphone is on mute throughout the meeting. When called upon to speak, please remember to unmute your microphone and turn on your camera, if operational, before speaking. Those presenting as delegations will have 10 minutes to speak to the application at hand, not past applications or associated applications. In the event a connection or service interruption occurs that affects quorum of Committee of Adjustment, we may recess the meeting for up to 15 minutes to regain quorum. If quorum is not achieved, the meeting is adjourned. I will now review the public meeting procedures. This meeting is held in accordance with the provision of the Planning Act. The purpose of this meeting is to discuss minor variance and consent applications and give anyone in attendance the opportunity to ask questions, provide comments related to an application. Notice of this meeting was provided by mail and signposted by staff as required by the Planning Act. A copy of the meeting agenda period.
MJ, we're losing you on this end.
Sure. Now.
Can just wait a moment and MJ will sign back in.
Can you hear me now, Alyssa?
I can hear you, but it is still a little unclear.
Okay, why don't I stop the video? Does that help?
It usually helps.
Okay. I'll try and can you hear me okay now?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay. I will go back to where I was. Once the presentations, public hearing, and question period are complete for each item, if the committee deems it appropriate, they will make a decision. Each committee decision is final following the 20-day appeal period. The names of those individuals who speak on any item tonight will appear within the meeting minutes. Anyone wishing to receive further notice or a copy of the committee's decision, please contact the County of Brant Planning Department. The order of delegation are as follows: planning staff report and recommendation, applicant agent presentation, questions and discussion, public comments, further questions of clarification, decision. I will now call each member of the committee in order. Please indicate by stating present if you are in attendance. Mary Jane Brown, present. Harry Emmett.
Present.
Bob Hamilton,
Present.
Daniel Zuloff,
Present.
Rebecca Smith,
Present.
Steve Schmidt,
Present.
John Vamus.
Present.
Thank you. We will now move to item 2, approval of the agenda. Do any members have items to be added to the agenda? I will just note that item 4, application A5-22-SL has been deferred. So may I request a mover and a seconder?
Member Zuloff, I can, oh, okay.
I didn't quite get that. Who is moving?
Member Emmett started to, and so did Member Zuloff, so take your pick.
I will take Member Emmett as the mover and Member Zuloff as the seconder. Can I please have a motion?
Councilor or Member Emmett here, move the agenda as amended.
Thank you. Second by Member Zuloff. All in favor, please indicate by stating yes. Starting with Mary Jane Brown, yes. Harry Emmett,
Yes.
Bob Hamilton,
Yes.
Daniel Zuloff,
Yes.
Rebecca Smith,
Yes.
Steve Schmidt,
Yes.
John Vamus.
Yes.
The agenda for tonight's meeting has now been approved. We will now move to declaration, item 3 on the agenda, declaration of pecuniary interest. Are there any members who would like to declare a conflict of interest for any items on the agenda this evening? If so, please indicate by stating your name and the application number. I believe there are none for this meeting. Moving to item 4 on our agenda, adoption of minutes from the previous meeting. Do the committee members have any errors or omissions to note? Do we have a mover and seconder for this motion, for this part? Can I have a mover?
Member Zuloff.
Thank
I
you.
can motion that.
And a second?
Member Hamilton.
Thank you. Can you
Okay.
please provide your motion, Member Zuloff?
Moved by myself and seconded by Member Hamilton that the minutes of the County of Brant Committee of Adjustments meeting of March 17th, 2022 be approved.
Thank you. Members, please indicate if you are in favor of the motion, starting with Member Emmett.
Yes.
Hamilton,
Yes.
Zuloff,
Yes.
Vamus,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Brown, yes. The motion has carried. The minutes have been adopted. I will now introduce the item 6.1 application A3-21-RC and turn it over to staff for the presentation of the report and the recommendation.
Thank you and good evening, Madam Chair. Again, this is with respect to application A3221RC, minor variance application for 507 Scenic Drive. This committee will recall that this application was before the committee in February and was subsequently deferred, requesting additional information. The subject lands are located on the north side of Scenic Drive between East River and McPherson School Road. Subject lands have a frontage of approximately 54 meters in an area of approximately 0.63 hectares or 1.5 acres and are privately serviced. The applicant is proposing 2 minor variances in support of proposed detached accessory structure. The applicant is proposing a total accessory structure lot coverage of 185.77 square meters, whereas 140 square meters is permitted. as well as a maximum accessory structure height of 5.4 meters, whereas 5 meters is permitted. Subject lands are designated in the OP as rural residential, and this designation generally contemplates for low-density residential development as well as accessory uses. Currently, the subject lands are zoned rural residential RR. The applicant is seeking relief from subsection 4.4 of the zoning bylaw, which relates to accessory buildings, to permit the development of their proposed detached accessory building. And it is my recommendation that this application be approved. I understand that Ms. Rashika Angrish, agent on behalf of the applicant, is available as well this evening to make a presentation. Thank you. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ryan. Does the committee have any questions or comments to staff on this application? At this point, it appears there are none. And I believe Ryan has indicated that the applicant's agent is here to make a presentation. I would ask if Rashika could take over now.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of committee. I believe Mr. Derek Cinco is here with me. He's representing, he's a solicitor representing the client as well. And I would like to turn it over to Mr. Cinco first, and then I can speak about the merits of the application, if that's okay with you, Madam Chair.
Yes, that's fine. If you could please, if Mr. Cinco, could he please identify himself and provide his presentation?
Yes, good evening. As Rashika mentioned, I'm legal counsel for the applicant. I'll keep my submissions legally focused and as brief as I can. I wanted to touch on a few of the concerns that have been raised in the public comments. And in Mr. Cummins' staff report, he summarized these concerns as setting a precedent, whether the proposal is minor, visual impacts or impacts on view, and concerns with the applicant running a commercial business out of the accessory building. And I'll make some submissions on each of these with respect to how the law would view these concerns and whether they ought to be relevant considerations for this committee to take into consideration when applying Section 45 of the Planning Act. Precedent. The Planning Act application that the committee is to assess ought to be assessed on its own individual merits. The test being whether the development is desirable, whether the general intent and purpose of the bylaw and official plan are maintained, and whether the variance is minor in nature. And that's the test that is applied to each individual application. So there really ought to be no concern that approving or denying this application one way or the other sets a precedent, given any subsequent application is assessed on its own individual merits. The second concern that's raised in the public comments is whether the variance is minor in nature. And the main consideration under this part of the test is on adverse impact. And specifically, will there be a greater than minor adverse impact? If the impact is only minor, then that is an acceptable impact. And this is not a mathematical exercise. It's not a numbers game. And I would submit that minor variances beyond the number which is being requested here have been granted and upheld by the tribunal in many cases. I would also encourage the committee to consider its not the impact of the accessory structure compared to what is currently there, which is nothing. It's the impact of allowing the applicant to go beyond what he could build as of right. And in this case, that is a 140 square meter accessory structure that's 5 meters in height. So really the question for the committee is, what does an additional 45 square meters and 0.4 meters in height, what is the adverse impact that's caused by the applicant going beyond what he could otherwise build? And that leads me into some of the specific concerns that have been raised in the public comments. The third concern listed in Mr. Cummins' report was view. And the Ontario Municipal Board and now the Ontario Land Tribunal has been clear over the years that there is no right to a view, whether that's good planning policy or poor planning policy is beyond my pay grade, but that is the law, that there is no right to a view. And I believe a case decided by Vice Chair Zudema states it succinctly with respect to criticism that there would be a loss of view. There are many prior decisions of the board which categorically state that there is no right to a view. So I would submit that concerns about an impact on a neighboring view is not a proper consideration as an adverse impact. The last concern raised in Mr. Cummins' report was whether the applicant will run a commercial business out of the accessory structure. These types of concerns have been brought with before, and generally the committee cannot presume that an applicant will run a business. And furthermore, if he does, there's other protections in place for enforcement to be undertaken if any unlawful commercial activity does take place on the rural residential property. Apprehensions or speculation of non-permitted activity are not relevant to the committee's assessment. It must be assumed that all owners will comply and observe all regulatory planning policies. And it's assumed that the intended use of the accessory structure will be that which is identified by the applicant, and there is no commercial use suggested by the applicant for the accessory structure. The final concern which I had identified from the public comments was diminishing property values. Again, this is mere speculation, but the case law is quite clear that property values are also not a proper planning reason for a committee to deny an application for a minor variance. So I would submit to the committee that none of those concerns at least are appropriate planning reasons for this application to be denied, and I would encourage the committee to approve the application in line with the planning opinions of Mr. Cummins and Rashika that we'll hear from a little bit now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cinco. I would now ask if Ms. Rashika has anything to add to that presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be very brief as well. In addition, I would just like to highlight that we did revise the application twice based on the comments that we received from staff, concerns from the public, as well as feedback from the committee in our February Committee of Adjustment meeting where this application was deferred. So the height has been reduced to 5.4 meters, whereas 5 meters is permitted under the bylaw. And then the size of the accessory structure has definitely been reduced from the original proposed to 185 square meters approximately. There is a tree line, I think. I don't want to repeat most of the information that was contained in the planning report that was prepared by us. There's no adverse impacts on the neighbor's property or any of the neighborhood. There have been many applications, again, have been approved by this committee in the vicinity of the subject lands for minor variance for oversized accessory structures in just last couple years. All this information was submitted to the county through the application process. We would request that the committee considers this application be approved. That concludes my submission, and happy to answer any questions if you have.
Thank you, Rushika. I believe there are there any questions for the from the committee to the agent's applicant?
Yes,
Yeah.
Member Hamilton here.
Please go ahead.
Through the chair to council, not the council, but I'm looking at the right side elevation picture that was on page 26 of the application that faces the backyard of the house. My question is, I've noted that the windows are fairly high up just under the roof line, and I'm curious as to why that was taken versus putting them down lower beside the door and the one on the left-hand side of that door.
I'm just looking at the design through you, Madam Chair.
Please go ahead. I see the drawing Member Hamilton is referring to.
I believe the owner is present as well, if he may would like to speak about the windows on the right side. I don't think there was any specific reason for the windows to be up high. It's just to provide additional lighting to the structure when the owner is present. That's the only reason I can think of. I do see Mr. Narani here, and maybe he can provide some clarity on that, please.
Thank you. Could Mr. Narani please speak and address that question?
The high windows, if you look at my house, exactly the same style. I did it for the sun to get in and more lights. And instead of putting it on the roof, I put it on the sides. And the two windows at the bottom, that's to open them up when I am inside for air. 1, 2, to have a view at my house, so who's coming and who's going out. Simple as this.
Thank you. It just seems a little strange when you try and balance it out, and it's a picture I haven't seen very often. So that's really what the question was about.
While we're on that topic, if the windows are that high, then is there a floor for like a second level in the building? If Mr. Narani could answer that, please.
No, it's open and there is no second. It's open concept. There is nothing that's going to be there, no ceiling, nothing. It's the whole entire thing is going to be open. It's simply storing and working on my own hobbies. That's it. And storing my work truck and the retirement RVs. And those windows, when we did the first time, the design, it was higher, like no scissor, no wood in the way. Now if we gonna go any lower, in any design, those windows, they're gonna be affected from the lights to reflect inside. So in first place, we put it up and we left it, me and the designer. I wish I brought the designer here. And so the air, the sun in the morning and the sunlight is still hitting inside the window, inside the garage. This is for more lighting, so I could save on hydro, and we could see the sunshine. And for your own knowledge, if you look at the previous design, I had another two on his side. But when he was complaining, he wants a privacy and he doesn't want that. So I gone and I changed it. I took it out. So what else I could do for him?
Thank you. Do committee members have any further comments or questions to the applicant and their agents?
The chair, this member of Amos, through the chair, I had a comment, not a question. May I proceed? Can you hear
Please
me?
go ahead, member Amos, sorry.
When Derek Cinco was speaking there about no significant adverse impact, well, you know, going from 140 square meters to 185 square meters, or a height of 5 to 5.4, is saying there's no, it's not a big thing, but we have rules and laws for a reason. The same thing as on the highway here. 80 is the speed limit. If I'm going 83, yeah, there's no adverse impact either, but I'm still breaking the law. So I don't know, even if it's a little bit above the regulations, it's still, we have these numbers for a reason. It's the same as other numbers, like same as on driving on a highway. If I'm a couple miles over, yeah, well, it's not much and it's insignificant, like he said, but I'm still over. There are rules and laws. That was my only comment. Thank you.
Thank you, member Amos. Are there any other committee members who have comments before we move to the public delegation phase of this applicant? I believe there are no further questions. So I'll introduce public delegations. And now,
Through the chair, I will welcome Michael Yeager and Trevor Sharp.
can Mr. Yeager, the two at this time?
Yes, good evening. Can everybody hear me okay?
Go ahead. Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you. Madam Chair, if I get cut off, I'm in actually Death Valley, California, so I can't say the reception's the greatest in the world necessarily, although I heard yours cut out too in Brant County, so maybe it's not so bad, but if I do fade out, I would just ask my client to finish off the presentation, Mr. Sharp. Yes, basically, as a recap to our last appearance in February, my client is opposed to this proposal. We don't consider it to be minor in nature whatsoever. You know, I agree with Mr. Cinco, it's not a numbers game, but you know, when the square footage is a third larger, it's quite a bit. Like that's not minor anymore, right? 5% deviation, that's minor, you know, but 33%, you know, square footage, that's just, it's going to be an eyesore and it's going to set a precedent, a bad precedent, I would suggest. I mean, and I don't know that many other applications were approved in the area for similar size structures. In fact, I would challenge anybody to, you know, list how many, certainly not in the immediate neighborhood, which is an estate, a very attractive estate residential area. And, you know, there's been, you know, as far as I'm aware offhand, no other in the immediate area, that's for sure. And this structure is pretty much the size of a home. And, you know, be that as it may, my client we've given 3 attachments to the committee, and sorry to burden you with the additional information, but our position is that, you know, an additional meter in height is not needed. It can, an RV style door, which is 12 foot in height, can be accommodated, within the current parameters of the bylaw. My client has introduced sketches to that effect. I mean, he's not an engineer, but there's plenty of stuff on the internet. We don't even know if the designs that have been given already are necessarily engineered, but the list of RVs is in the package that my client submitted, and and the respective height of the various RVs that are available, anywhere from between 9 and 11 feet. So they can be accommodated in, current low overhead designs without having a massive, large structure. With respect to water, I think as well, this is just a little bit of a recap. It was asked if there was water at the building, and the planner indicated no, but the fact of the matter is there is a water pipe at this location, and there's a picture of it actually in the materials. But getting back to the point of my clients, identified various questions in the presentation. A mention was made that the current garage is a bit, junky. It's, this sort of thing. But well, we don't want a junkyard. Where's all that stuff from the garage going to go? Is it going to go outside? Maybe it's going to go in this new structure. And we have a grave concerns that Mr. Narani is already operating a business from the address, and that this is an extension of his business, an expansion of his business operations. If you look on the internet, and I've included these materials for you. I mean, we did just, if you look at his business card for this business, which is on the truck, it's parked in the driveway. We showed you a picture of it right outside my client's, essentially outside his bedroom. In any event, there's no address on his business card, but if you go on the internet, it shows 37 Woodlawn Road as being the business address. Well, it's a quiet residential street in Brantford. And if we did a title search of that house, and it's not even Mr. Narani's property. So, I think there's some credibility issues here. It does show it's an older picture. It does show the active air vehicle in the driveway, but is that where he's operating his business and keeping all his parts and stuff? I respectfully submit, clearly just through a process of elimination, this company's materials are going to be stored in this giant garage, which is again almost the size of a house, at 507 Scenic Drive. This is what it's going to be used for. If it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, it's a duck. So he's going to be operating the business out of there. We believe he already is doing that from his garage. He's just reached the point of where he's filled it all up. So, again, all the more reason to reject this proposal. Again, I've included slides and information in the package to you, which, again, the 37 Woodlawn, where this business supposedly headquartered, it's not even a business address. We did a corporate search of Active Air, which is the applicant's business. It's not even a registered business under the laws of Ontario, at least that we could find. I've included the searches in the materials we're not just speculating about that. We searched it and it doesn't show up. So I don't know what, licensing or, what credibility this proposal has. There's not even a proper, business address or business registration. And all those materials are before the committee for you to peruse. And again, we're very concerned about the fact that a business is being run and will be expanded at this location. And here we are essentially rubber stamping it. And I have to raise a question again about, just general democratic principles here. I realize the county planner, who's a professional, obviously, has approved the proposal, but I believe 15 or 17 people have opposed this project. And I don't know. I guess you have to ask yourself, how many other minor variance applications get that kind of opposition? Certainly, I didn't see any at the last meeting. Maybe there will be at this meeting. I'm not sure. I don't do a lot of minor variance application meetings, but 17 people. So, we should be concerned about the sort of democratic outcry, and that, county officials or members of the Committee of Adjustment are gatekeepers, and they're not just here, as you know, to rubber stamp decisions of staff or applicants. There's a real feeling here that this development is inappropriate for the neighborhood. And that's why in our materials, we suggested that an interim control bylaw should actually be something that the county should have considered right at the get-go. And if it's not too late, it should do it now. We can't go out and have 1,500 square foot structures in the state residential neighborhoods. It's just not in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. It's not good planning. It's not minor in nature, and it just detracts all around from the neighborhood. That's why people move to these estate residential areas. It's not to have, giant garages or businesses operated, by their neighbors. They're trying to escape those kinds of things. So in my respectful submission, it's all in writing before you. My client has well prepared the materials. He had a conversation with Mr. Narani, not incidentally, where he indicated that he'd be moving in 5 years, and that, he'd be happy with 1,000 square feet or even 500 square feet, which is below the threshold. But if he'd be happy with 1,000, then maybe he should take 1,000, because 1,500 is just too much. I don't believe there's a plethora of other applications of that nature in the neighborhood. And as I say, it's just not good planning in the face of all the factors and all of the evidence. And, quite frankly, there's some questions about the business, and not just that it's being operated, that it's even a properly registered business. So we don't want that in this neighborhood. My client doesn't want that. And this proposal should be denied on that basis. Those are my submissions.
Thank you, Mr. Yeager. I'll ask the committee, do you have any questions or comments to Mr. Yeager? I believe there are none, so I will ask Alyssa to introduce the next public delegation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Do we have Mr. Parrott available?
Yes, this is where Parrott, I'm available.
Mr. Parrott, we're getting some feedback. You can please go ahead and provide your presentation, and I would just ask that if you had additional information to present, rather than repeating some of the points Mr. Yeager has already made. Please go ahead. Thank you.
Yes, good evening, everyone, and thank you for allowing me to speak to this matter tonight. I'm a homeowner at 285 East River Road, just south of the intersection of Scenic Drive and East River Road. I have no vested interest in the application or its opposition, and I will apologize in advance if some of my comments appear to be somewhat repetitious of what Mr. Jager said. I have not consulted with him, and these are my thoughts only. I can state that I am in opposition to this application. First of all, the application by its very nature and title must be, and again, this is repetition, but I think it's important, must be minor. Must be minor or small by definition. Otherwise, as I understand it, the process for the relief that the applicant is claiming must be by way of a zoning bylaw amendment. Take it out of the hands of the Committee of Adjustment and take it back to the level of governmental authority that imposed the strict requirements of the bylaw initially. That's probably a very difficult and cumbersome procedure, but if it's important enough for the applicant to do that, then in my submission, that's the process that we should undertake. I would submit that the extra square footage, I understand now the height's been reduced to just over the minimum. I didn't know that. But in any event, the extra square footage, which I understand is about 33% above the allowable square footage, is, again, in my submission, substantial and not minor. And on that ground alone, I would submit with the greatest respect to the committee that the application ought to be refused. But there's more in my submission. As I understand it, the relief claim must be desirable for the development or use of the land, building, or structure. But the test I submit, and I've done some reading, is not one that's answered affirmatively by the wishes of the applicant and what is appropriate for the applicant's use of the land, building, and structures, but one that must take into account the public interest sense, and therefore the effect of the relief sought in the area and the neighborhood generally becomes highly relevant. Mr. Sharp either has or will no doubt have spoken about the negative aspects as they pertain to his family specifically, but from a wider neighborhood perspective, I submit the following. I built my home 40 years ago when the western portion of Scenic Drive, that's the area in question, was an unpaved road with perhaps only 2 older residences along it. Since then, the road has been paved and upscale, very upscale, country estate residences have been constructed on both sides of the road. All of the residences are beautiful, tasteful, and of high quality and on large lots. There's no doubt that there's a lot of open space, despite the fact that some of the homes are of significant size. But that doesn't detract from the beauty of the neighborhood at all. If the committee approves this application, how could a powerful precedent not be created, which could potentially permit every resident, and there are dozens, to construct a similar ancillary structure with the result that the country estate facade will, in my respectful submission to the committee, look more like a street of warehousing. And that is certainly not, I would submit, the intention of the zoning bylaw and the official plan. And this area is known rural residential. Just a point that came up to me, and I'm almost finished with my comments, and again, thank you for your opportunity to address you. But it's interesting that the applicant's representative states that each application is to be decided on its own merits, and that therefore precedent is not relevant. But then, in the same breath, states that there are prior decisions to support his application, which would suggest to me the exact opposite, that a precedent is relevant, but maybe only if it's favored. Those are my comments tonight. As I say, I'm really a concerned neighbor and have felt it necessary to come forward tonight and at least give the committee my views on this matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Parrott. Can everyone hear me? Because I'm getting notice that my connection's unstable.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you, Alyssa. Then I would ask, are there any questions or comments from the committee to Mr. Parrott? It appears there are none. Alyssa, could you introduce the next public delegation for this application?
Yes, up next we have Madame Morin.
Mrs. Warren, can you please identify yourself and start your presentation? Miss, oh, you are.
Yeah, hello, how are you? Okay,
Fine,
good evening.
thank you. Please go
Okay,
ahead.
good evening to everyone. I'd like to thank the Committee of Adjustment for allowing me to speak about this matter. I'm sure some of the things that I'll bring up are repeat, but indulge me. Now, I've lived on at 499 Scenic Drive for the last 16 years, and I've watched this area grow. It's lost its beauty, and we've lost a lot of its view. That's one of the reasons we moved out here and built a house. When we first arrived here, there were apple orchard, there were horses right across the street. You know, now it's become a lot of homes and structures, and that was to be expected, but we don't want it to become a subdivision. That's one of the reasons why we wanted to live out here, because we wanted to have a lot of space. And especially as a nurse, I always worked in the city in Toronto, and it really was important for me to come home in the evening or on the weekends and have this quietness that we have out here. So Scenic Drive has become very busy with its vehicles, private vehicles, business vehicles, motorcycles, the young guys racing up and down the street. The dynamics has totally changed, and we're trying to make it come back a little bit to where it was, considering that we live out here and we like living out here. Now I realize that this gentleman at 507, he's decreased the size of his building, but he's decreased it down to 2,000 square feet. My house is 2,500 square feet. I don't understand why a person needs a house or an accessory building the size of my house, well, like 500 square feet less. It makes no sense. Like 1,500 square feet is plenty for an accessory building. That's large enough. I don't see that he needs a bigger building. And we have a bylaw. Why do we have bylaws if everybody's going to be changing the bylaw? There's a bylaw. If you want to change the bylaw, then pass it. But don't, once you institute something, change it. Because if you allow one person to do this, if he's allowed to do this, then what can I not build a structure that large? And those structures do destroy the character of Scenic Drive, and it's going to impair the neighbor's vision. You know, we have a large solar panel next door to our house. It's huge. Thank God that my deck is on the other side where I can't see it. But every time I go out my side door from my garage, I see this huge solar panel. And I understand that we need solar panel, but this thing blocks the view. It's so unattractive. It annoys me every time I go out my garage door. Like I look at it and think, what the hell? Sorry, excuse me. Like it's just not right. So I don't see why a large structure should be built next to his neighbor's house, which it's going to obstruct his view. It's going to obstruct sunlight. You know, I realize the lawyer said, well, you know, we don't need the, yeah, we need the view. That's why we came out here. That's why we paid the tax dollars that we paid, because we want it. That's why we've got properties that are 2.5, we have 2.5 acres or 3 acres large, because we want the view, we want the space. We love the deer coming into our yards. We love nature. It's important. So I don't see that a person should be building a structure larger than what is required by bylaw. And he owns a business, and don't fool yourself. In the end, business vehicles will be going into there. I mean, that's just common sense. The space will be there. His business vehicles will need a space. It will be cheaper to house them there to then house them somewhere else and pay rent somewhere else. Do we want to take a chance on that? I don't think so. And if it's been allowed other places, that's too bad. I'm only concerned about Scenic Drive. And on Scenic Drive, we should follow the bylaw as much as we can. Now, we've been going on with this. It's 3 letters that I've written. It's time that we vote on this and make a conscious decision that we do what's right for Scenic Drive. Not what's right for anybody else, but what's good for Scenic Drive. And for Scenic Drive, a structure that large is not the proper thing to do. I think that's all I have to say. I just am totally against it. It's just too large of a structure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Warren. I will ask the committee members, do you have any questions or comments for this public delegation? It appears there are none from the committee. Then I would ask the committee, are there any last questions, final questions or comments to either staff or the agent, the applicant, or the public delegations?
Member Smith here, if I may ask a question of the applicant.
Go ahead. Please go.
I just so I can confirm, so the existing house has 3 garage bays. I just was wondering if you can tell me how many personal vehicles you own.
Mr. Narani, I would ask that you could respond to that, because I believe
I will answer this question, but you put me on the spot. This is personal and privacy. You're not supposed to be anybody know in public to know how many is living. Yes, we
Okay,
are.
is the
four of
garage
us-
full
no,
of
it's four-
vehicles?
It's four of us living here, and more kids, they're coming. And more kids, they're coming. Like I have kids and grandkids, they will be coming in the future. That's why the house is bigger. And by the way, the house is not that big as everybody say. It's only 3,000 square feet. 10 feet high, main level, 9 feet basement. So what's big about it? Why
So
everybody?
Mr. Morani,
Yes.
Member Smith just asked regarding the number of personal vehicles, recognizing you have a business. So she didn't ask about the size of the house. Could you just please either state you will answer the question or won't answer the question?
Yeah, the garage is all my moving boxes in, and when we did landscaping outside, there is stillage inside the garage. I have a tractor, I have a snow blower, so the garage is full. Yeah, it's not a junk as they say. Nothing as business in there. They're more welcome, come and see. And one more comment I want to make, I'm sorry, is that, well, they saying there is a hydro water connected. No, it's a water line in there buried in the ground to my house where where my hydro line is gonna go there. I hope I answered the questions.
Does that satisfy you, Member Smith?
Yeah, that's good for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further comments or questions from the committee? I believe there are none. Then I would request that a mover and a seconder put a motion forward. Do we have a member who would like to put forth a motion on this application?
Member Zuloff?
Member Zuloff, please. And do we have a second?
Well, I want to move to deny the application because it is
Thank
not
you.
minor in nature, not a desirable use of the land.
Thank you. Do we have a second on this motion?
Seconded by Member Bamus.
Okay, please go ahead. So recognizing that Member Zuloff is putting forth a motion with Member Vamus as the second, please put your motion forward, Member Zuloff, for the record.
Okay, moved by myself and seconded by Member Bamus that application A3221RC be denied because it is not minor in nature and not a desirable use of the land.
Thank you, members Zuloff and Vamus. I will now call the vote. Members, please indicate if you are in favor of the motion, starting with Member Emmett. Do we have Member Emmett present?
I'm coming, yep, I agree with the motion.
You voted yes. Member Hamilton?
Yes.
Zuloff?
Yes.
Vamus?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Schmidt?
Yes.
Brown? Yes. The motion to deny this application has been carried by the committee. I believe there is nothing else on this application, so we will now move to item 6.2, and I would thank the presenters for this application and the committee. I will now introduce the item 6.2, application B16-22-RC, and turn it over to staff for the presentation of the report and the recommendation.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ryan. Please go ahead.
Great, thanks. Okay, and this is for application B1622 for 179 Howell Road in South Dumfries Township from Triple Lane Farms. The subject lands are located on the north side of Howell Road, west of St. George Road. The subject lands have a frontage of approximately 400 meters on Howell Road and 340 on St. George Road, in a total area of approximately 32 hectares, or about 79 acres. The subject lands are privately serviced. The applicant is seeking to sever an existing single detached dwelling with an area of approximately 0.53 hectares, which is surplus to the needs of this farming operation. Subject lands currently are zoned as a special exception agricultural A1 zone, which permits 2 single detached dwellings. And so there are currently 2 single detached dwellings on the lands that are legally established. And the applicant is proposing to sever one of those, retain 1 single detached dwelling. The lands are designated agriculture and natural heritage. The agricultural designation contemplates for agricultural uses as well as a single detached dwelling and accessory uses. The natural heritage designation is intended to identify and protect natural features such as wetlands and woodlands. As stated before, the subject lands are zoned as special exception agricultural A1 and natural heritage. As a condition of this application, the severed and retained lands will be rezoned to address several deficiencies outlined in my report and in the recommended conditions. Notably, with respect to the A1 zoning would be removed for both retained and severed lots and to be reverted to an agricultural A zone. One item to note, although this is a surplus severance, we do not require the A9 zoning because there are 2 legally established dwellings on the subject lands, and it'll be reverted to the A zoning, which only allows for 1. And so I'm recommending this application be approved subject to the attached conditions, and I'd be happy to take any questions at this time.
Thank you, Ryan, for your presentation. Do the committee members have any questions or comments to staff on this?
Member Hamilton here. We had some correspondence back and forth, and Ryan indicated that we could drop the 5th portion of the conditions on the firefighting, and I just wanted to confirm that with him.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Member Hamilton. That's correct. The rural firefighting fee was requested, as stated previous. I will remind my colleagues at the fire department that would apply to new lots or new residential dwellings only, and I'd be happy to drop that condition. And as well, I would note to the committee that conditions 2 and 4 would be were repeated in error, so we could remove condition number 4 as it's accounted for under condition number 2.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from the committee members to staff? Is the applicant or their agent present to make a presentation that provides information additional to the staff report?
Madam Chair, it's Ruchika Angrish again. I do not have any additional information to add. Mr. Cummings has given a great presentation. I would recommend that the committee considers approving this application subject to the amended conditions.
Thank you, Ruchika. Are there any comments or questions from the committee members to the agent? I have a question. This is considered a surplus farm dwelling, but I noticed in the material that both residences are occupied by family members who actually work in the operation. Is the intent then to sell this property in the near future?
Madam Chair, the owner of the lands is present currently. My understanding is that the family members will continue to occupy those residences. But John, if you want to add something to it, please.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, we currently, one family member is living in the one house. It works full-time with me. And the other family members are also on there, but they're hoping to live there for many years. But we're just working together as family to give them a home, and saves me down the future having to have a rental home. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, I just wondered why it was considered surplus if you're actually people who are actually working on the farm, living in it. So,
Well, my daughter and son-in-law who live there now, they're not physically working on the farm.
okay, okay, thank you. I'll ask the committee members, have any further questions or comments? I will then ask, is there a mover and seconder to put forward a motion?
Member Hamilton will move.
And if you just state, are you approving or denying so that the seconder can?
Approving.
Do we have a second?
Member Schmidt.
Please go ahead, Member Hamilton, with your motion.
Thank you, Chair. Moved by myself, seconded by Member Schmidt, that application B16-22-RC be approved with the list of conditions that were put forward that have now been amended, with 4 and 5 being deleted or taken off because it does fit the County of Brant official plan and zoning bylaws.
Thank you, Member Hamilton and Schmidt. I'll now call the vote. Please indicate if you are in favor of the motion, members, starting with Member Emmett. Are you present, Member Emmett?
Yes, dear. I approve.
Thank you.
You cut out on me. That's why I didn't.
Oh,
say
sorry. I can't help this internet connection. I think Rogers doesn't like me tonight. Member Hamilton.
Yes.
Zuloff.
Yes.
Vamus.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Schmidt.
Yes.
And Brown, yes. The motion has carried. The application has been approved. Thank you to staff and committee members. We will now move to item 3 on our agenda, and I will introduce the application SV122-SL and turn it over to staff for the presentation of the report and recommendation.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. So good evening, committee and members of the public. This is a sign variance for lands located at 1070 Rest Acres Road, Building A5, units number 6 and 7, within the geographic township of Paris. So the request is to propose a total of 4 fascia signs, whereas only 2 are permitted within a commercial zone. The subject lands are located on the west side of Rest Acres Road, north of the future Arlington Parkway. The subject lands are surrounded by commercial and residential uses to the north, residential use to the east, south, and west of the property. The subject lands are designated as shopping center commercial within the County of Brant official plan. The sign variance is in conformity with the County of Brant official plan for the following reasons. The shopping center commercial designation allows for the proposed retail use, and no new designation is currently being sought. The subject lands are zoned as general commercial with a site-specific provision 1, so C3-1, within the County of Brant zoning bylaw. The proposed retail use is permitted within the C3-1 zone. The application is seeking relief from Section G, fascia signs, subsection G1, in regards to the number permitted, in order to permit a total of 4 fascia signs, whereas only 2 are permitted. All other requirements for a fascia sign as per the sign bylaw 12108 are being met. and the proposal is considered to be in keeping with the County of Brant zoning bylaw 6116. No public comments were received at the time of writing the report. I am supportive of the sign variance application as it is in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the official plan. The request is minor in nature and will not impact adjacent land uses. I am recommending approval of the sign variance application. Thank you and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for your presentation, Shannon. I'll ask the committee members, are there any questions or comments to staff on this?
Member Smith, I can ask a quick question to staff.
Please go ahead.
I think I asked this before. I'm just wondering where you're at in revising the sign variant, sign, yeah.
Yes,
the sign bylaw.
Yes, no, through Madam Chair to Member Smith, we are still working on that update. It's been put on hold currently.
Okay, thank you.
No problem, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further comments or questions from the committee members to staff? Is the agent of the applicant or the applicant present to add to this presentation?
Madam Chair, I believe they were away today on vacation, so I don't believe they're here.
Okay,
I
thank
am
you.
here, actually.
Oh, my apologies.
That's okay. I just substituted for Crystal and Jordan, who are away.
Okay. Do you have anything further to add to the staff report?
No, I don't actually.
Okay, thank you. Does the committee, do any committee members have any comments or questions to the agent? It appears there are none.
Member Vamus here.
Oh, please go ahead.
Through the chair to the applicant, these two extra signs, are they lighted? Are they lighted or no? Also, all four signs are non-lighting?
All four signs are lighting.
They're lit signs.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further comments, final comments or questions from the committee members? I believe there are none, so I will request a mover and a seconder on this application.
Member Schmidt.
Member Schmidt, you will make a motion to approve or deny? Approve?
Approve.
And who is the second? I didn't.
Member Smith can second.
Please go ahead, Member Schmidt, with your motion.
Okay, moved by myself and seconded by Member Smith that the application SV 1-22-SL be approved.
Thank you, Members Schmidt and Smith. I will now call the vote. Members, please indicate if you are in favor of the motion, starting with Member Emmett.
Yes.
Thank you. Member Hamilton?
Yes.
Zuloff?
Yes.
Member Vamus?
Yes.
Member Smith?
Yes.
Member Schmidt?
Yes.
And Brown, yes. The motion to approve this application SV 1-22SL has now been carried by the committee and the application has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 6.4 on our agenda, 11 Meadowood Drive, has been deferred to a later meeting. So I will now introduce the item 6.5 application A11-22-DN and turn it over to staff for the presentation of the report and the recommendation.
Member Smith, can I just ask a quick question about that last application? Maybe it's to staff.
Please.
Did the notice go out in the mail and do we need to make a motion to actually defer that application? Or did you catch it in the mail? Just wondering staff's opinion on that.
Perhaps I can address that. I do believe we sent notices out. It was through discussions with the applicant, the deferrals coming at staff's request. So this is, and I think maybe Shannon can provide a little bit more background on the request for the deferral.
Yeah, absolutely. So the reason for the request for the deferral is some of the public, they noted some valid concerns with regards to the actual request in terms of what the minor variance was for. They noted there were additional structures on the property that were not captured on the site plan. And there was some information missing on the site plan that would assist in my planning analysis. So with that, I've requested that the application be deferred so we can work on those points, address the public's concerns, and make sure that all the information is included on the site plan.
And then to answer your question, we won't be looking for a formal motion from the committee this evening, and we'll provide adequate notice next time it comes to the committee.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Application A1122. This is a minor variance application for property located at 14 Whiting Drive. Our agent is with us this evening, and staff are recommending approval of the application. The property is located within the newer Mile Hill subdivision along Whiting Drive at the intersection of Park Hill Lane, as identified on your screen with the star and highlighted in red. The property has an area of approximately 480 square meters, frontage of 15 meters, and a depth of 32 meters. The official plan designates the property as urban residential and has a site-specific zoning, R1-16, which is a zoning that permits site-specific setbacks and aspects of the site like coverage, which apply to numerous blocks throughout this subdivision. The existing conditions, so we do have a single detached dwelling constructed on the property. We also have the deck as shown on the property, and the existing coverage of the property does match the 40% permitted for a dwelling. And there's an additional 4% in place for what is considered the uncovered deck. So the proposal is to increase the maximum lot coverage permitted for the dwelling of 48%, where 40% is currently permitted, and also increase the total area, total maximum area for lot coverage for all structures of 50%, where a maximum of 45% is currently permitted. So the chart below provides a breakdown of how those percentages are calculated. The existing uncovered deck that you saw in that picture, there is a covered portion associated with the construction of that deck. It's my interpretation of how we would apply a covered structure, which would be part of the primary dwelling, which is why the deck is now being considered as part of the dwelling and included in that 48% being requested. The applicants are also requesting an additional 2%, just so we're not maxing out the applicant's ability to locate something such as a garden shed on the property as well. As you can see in the image, the property does have a walkway through to what will be a park and stormwater management area, open area in behind. Many of these dwellings are under construction, and notice has been given with no members of the public comments received. So review of this minor variance application has had regard for the 4 tests as set out in section 45(1) of the Planning Act, as well as comments received as part of technical circulation. Also confirmed that no comments worth noting through the technical circulation were received. It is my professional recommendation that this minor variance application be approved. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Does the committee member, any of the committee members have comments or questions to staff on this application?
Member Hamilton here, through the chair to staff. Dan, I noticed when I was out there, and I could be wrong, there were maybe a couple other houses that had similar covered decks put on them. Is this something that we're going to have to do minor variances on for some of the other ones in the future? Or is it strictly just this individual at 14 Whiting?
I did notice that as well. These newer subdivisions, as you could imagine, they are looking to put the largest footprint on, maximize the potential on the lots. So a lot of subdivisions are being approved with site-specific zoning such as this to increase the permitted coverage for the dwelling, which typically leaves less area for things like accessory structures. So, it's not something that we would anticipate receiving these types of applications, but it's certainly something that could come up, and we certainly use our discretion to determining whether or not each site's appropriate. As was mentioned earlier, each application would be reviewed under its own merits. Typically, we're looking at things like how a structure would, or an increased coverage would impact drainage, location of swales, things like that. In this case, the setbacks are not being impacted. The drainage patterns and the way the site's engineered is not being negatively impacted. So we do have, in this particular example, we are in good shape and feel that the minor variance is appropriate, and we'll review the other applications as they come.
Thank you.
Member Emmett?
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Through you, Madam Chair, to staff. So what we're approving tonight is what we see in the picture. It's already built.
Through you, Madam Chair, no, the proposed, that is kind of the builder grade deck that was installed. The applicants wish to expand upon that existing deck, so it actually will stretch across the back of the whole dwelling, just to enlarge that deck.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions from the committee members? I believe there are none. And I would ask, is the applicant or their agent here to add to this presentation?
I don't think I have anything to add. I think Dan did a great job.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. Then, and I believe there are no public delegations registered to speak to this application. So I will now ask, are there any final questions or comments from the committee members? Could I please have a mover and a seconder on this application?
Member Smith, I can move to approve.
Thank you. Is there a seconder?
Member Zuloff, in second.
Thank you. Member Smith, please go ahead with your motion.
Moved by myself and seconded by Member Zuloff that application A1122DN be approved as it meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act.
Thank you. Members, please indicate if you are in favor of the motion, starting with Member Emmett.
Yes.
Hamilton?
Yes.
Zuloff?
Yes.
Vamus?
No.
Member Smith?
Yes.
Schmidt?
Yes.
And Brown, yes. I believe there are enough yes votes to carry the motion. So the motion has carried. The application A1122DN has now been approved. Thank you, committee members. Thank you. I will now introduce the item 6.6, application B1022SL, and turn it over to staff for the presentation of the report and the recommendation.
Madam Chair. This is a severance for lands located at 4 Bernice Street within the geographic township of Brantford. This is to create one new residential lot with a frontage of approximately 30.2 meters and an area of approximately 2,022 square meters. The retained lands have a frontage of approximately 22 meters and an area of 1,974 square meters. The subject lands are located on the east side of, These subject lands are located on the east side of Bernice Street, having a frontage along the east side of Bernice Street. I just wanted to speak quickly to the servicing in this area. So as per recommendation of report PA-18-24, no new applications are to be accepted within the Mount Pleasant settlement area that would increase municipal water consumption. The county has permitted severances of existing lots of record that have a water service. This parcel for Bernice Street is an existing lot of record. And as a condition, recommended as a condition of approval is a holding provision to be placed on the proposed lot until water capacity increases. Timeline for when water capacity is to increase is still unknown at this time. The subject lands are designated suburban residential and are located within the secondary urban settlement area of Mount Pleasant in the County of Brant official plan. The proposed severance is in conformity with the County of Brant official plan for the following reasons. The subject lands are located within the secondary urban settlement area and built boundary of Mount Pleasant. The proposal is an example of intensification. The lands are partially serviced by water. The lands will continue to be used for residential purposes. And the proposed consent maintains the general character of the surrounding neighborhood and is compatible in terms of size and shape. These subject lands are zoned as suburban residential within the County of Brant zoning bylaw 6116. The application complies with the County of Brant zoning bylaw as the severed and retained lots satisfy all development standards for the suburban residential zone. No public comments were received for this application at the time of writing the report. It is my professional opinion that the requested consent application has merit, is in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the County of Brant zoning bylaw and official plan. I am recommending approval of the severance application subject to the attached conditions. Thank you and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Shannon. I'll ask the committee members, do you have any comments or questions to staff on this?
Member Smith through to staff, if I can.
Please go ahead.
So just to confirm, this existing lot of record that we're calling it does not have a water service already to it?
Does.
It does have water service. Okay, so there's two services to this lot.
Sorry, through Madam Chair to Member Smith, there's currently only one. And so with the proposed severance, a holding provision is going to be placed on the proposed new lot until water capacity increases. So there still will only be one water connection for this property. Once the water capacity increases for the Mount Pleasant area, then the holding can be lifted and then they'll be able to develop on the new lot.
Okay, so the existing house that's staying on the retained lot has an existing connection, but
Correct.
the lot that's being severed does not have another connection as well. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Member Hamilton here, through the chair to staff. Looking at condition number 6, and I think it's about the third point down, brushing and grubbing will be required to facilitate adequate sight lines for the proposed access. Is that the hedge in front of the current building, or are we talking about taking out a number of trees in the future when they go to build?
Chair to Member Hamilton, I believe that's the hedge that you're referring to.
Okay, so and is that hedge then on their property, or is it on part of the county's property?
One moment, I'm just going to take a look at the property.
It just seems like a strange request. That was all. So
I believe that request came from our development engineering department. I can always follow up with them and provide clarification if you'd like.
Yep, no, that's fine. It was just I thought I'd just quiz it a little bit.
No problem. And the hedge is on their property.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions?
Member Vamus, I had a
Please go
comment.
ahead. Yes.
Through the chair to either the other committee members or staff. I don't know that the gazebo that has to be removed. That's not in the list of conditions. Should we put that in there, or because there's a gazebo on the property line, but there's nothing in the conditions. But on the applicant's diagram, it says it's going to be removed this spring. But how do we know that? I don't know.
Through the chair to Member Bamos, we can certainly add that as a condition.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? I had just a question on the retained parcel. It looks like it's much narrower. So does it have the required frontage that it wouldn't need a minor variance and like setbacks for the building to the new property lines, or would that be addressed when the holding provision is lifted?
When I did my zoning review of the property, it was in compliance with the zoning bylaw requirements for setbacks, as well as in terms of frontage and the area for the lot, because it's on partial services.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further comments or questions? And is the applicant or the agent present to add to this report?
Excuse me, sorry. Yes, I am. My name is Rob Innes. I am the property owner. I have nothing to add to Shannon's report.
Thank you. Do any committee members have any comments or questions to Mr. Innes? I believe there are none. Then I would ask if there is a mover and seconder on this application.
Member Emmett would approve.
Say, please go. Do I have a seconder for Member Emmett?
Member Schmidt.
Please go ahead, Member Emmett, with your motion.
Moved by myself and second by Member Schmidt that we approve application B1022 SL as it meets all the requirements of the County's Planning Act and subject to good planning.
Thank you, Members Emmett and Schmidt. I will now call the vote. Members, please indicate if you are in favor of the motion, starting with Member Emmett.
Yes.
Hamilton?
Yes.
Zuloff?
Can I just clarify, are we voting to accept with the added condition to remove the gazebo?
Oh, yes. Member Emmett, you were adding the condition for the, okay.
Yep.
Okay, just wanted to clarify. Yes.
Vamus?
Yes.
Smith?
No.
Schmidt?
Yes.
Brown? Yes. I believe there was only one no on this motion, so the motion has carried. The application B1022 SL has now been approved. I will now introduce item 6.7, application B1122AW, and turn it over to staff for the presentation of the report and the recommendation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is a surplus farm dwelling severance for lands located at 35 Indian Line Road within the geographic township of Oakland. The proposed lot has a frontage of approximately 93.24 meters and an area of approximately 0.83 hectares. The retained lands have a frontage of approximately 227.8 meters and an area of 24.9 hectares. The subject lands are located on the south side of Indian Line Road and north of Jenkins Road, having frontage along the south side of Indian Line Road and the north side of Jenkins Road. The subject lands are designated as agriculture and natural heritage within the County of Brant official plan. The lands to be severed are designated as agriculture. The proposed severance is in conformity with the County of Brant official plan for the following reasons. There's no new residential lot being created, as the retained lands are to be rezoned to prohibit a dwelling or a residential use and to provide relief of the undersized farm parcel. The retained lands are expected to be farmed as part of a larger farming operation located at 136 Oxbow Road. The severed and retained parcels have frontage along an open and maintained road. The minimum distance formulae is able to be met. The severed parcel is large enough to accommodate all servicing. The subject lands are zoned as agriculture and natural heritage within the County of Brant zoning bylaw 6116. The subject lands, the lands subject to the severance are zoned as agriculture. The application complies with the County of Brant zoning bylaw as the severed and retained lots satisfy the development standards of the A zone, aside from the deficient area of the retained parcel and the height of one of the accessory structures, which is to be recognized through the minor rezoning process. No public comments were received for this application. It is my professional opinion that the requested consent application has merit, is in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw and official plan. I'm recommending approval of the severance application subject to the attached conditions. I would like to add that conditions provided by operations requesting a road widening, which were not included actually as a condition, they removed that comment. Our development engineering department didn't provide any comments. They just had no comment for the actual application itself. And the condition requiring a rural firefighting fee and parkland dedication are also to be removed. Thank you and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Shannon. Are there any committee members who have questions and comments to staff on this?
Just a clarification, one of the conditions says the metal clad barn will be removed, correct?
Madam Chair, to Member Emmett, that is correct.
Thank you.
Are there any further comments or questions? I had a question on condition 4, and it referred to the survey sketch, and there was one of the accessory structures. It was identified as the 1.5-story frame garage. I couldn't quite read it on the drawing, but I assume that is the building that sort of sits at an angle, and it is going with the severed parcel, or it's on the retained.
Pulling it up right now, 1 second. Yes, so if you are looking at the proposed severance, the proposed lot, it's the building that's closer to the southwest corner.
Okay.
That building. So yeah, it is on a slight angle.
Right. So then there's the house, the 2-car garage, and that 1.5-story garage. They will stay on the retained. It's quite a large barn. It has the red roof and it all seems to be connected. That is the condition. It will be removed.
Yeah, on the, sorry, I can't see the actual name of the survey there, but the building that's kind of shaped like an L, that's the one that is going to be removed. And then there's 3 accessory structures and the house, which are going to be on the severed lot.
Okay. Okay. Okay, thank you. Are there any further comments or questions to staff from the committee on this? Is the applicant or their agent present to add to this report?
Yeah,
They're not
present.
Yes?
Yeah.
What is the name?
Lucas.
Lucas?
Yeah, hello.
Do you have any information to add to this report?
Nope, I think everything has been stated.
Thank you. Do any committee members have any questions or comments to the applicant? I believe there are none, so I will just ask the final questions. If there are any further comments or questions from the committee to staff, then I will request a mover and a seconder to put forward a motion on this application.
Member Hamilton will move to accept.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Member Zuloff, I can second.
I heard Zuloff, so I'll go with Zuloff. Please go ahead, Member Hamilton.
Moved by myself and seconded by member Zuloff that application B11-22-AW be approved with the modified conditions by taking number 5 and 7 out because it does meet the, it fulfills the official plan of Brant County.
Thank you. I will now call the vote. And members, please indicate if you are in favor of the motion, starting with member Emmett.
Yes.
Hamilton,
Yes.
Zuloff,
Yes.
Vamus,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Brown, yes. The motion has carried. The application has been approved. Thank you. We will now move to item 7 on our agenda. The next meeting is expected to be May 19th, 2022, and we will be meeting in person in the council chambers located at 7 Broadway Street at 6 p.m. And we will now move to adjournment. May I please get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Member Emmett?
And do we have a second?
Member Schmidt?
Thank you. Please go ahead, Member Emmett.
Moved by myself, second by member Schmidt, that the meeting be adjourned.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Starting with Hamilton.
Yes.
Member Smith, I have it.
Yes.
And Member Schmidt?
Yes.
Member Brown, yes. And Zuloff?
Yes.
Thank you. I now declare the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.